Oh, somebody had a terrifying story. Really? Some kind of terrifying story. I don't care at all. I don't know what you do. Please. Sharing the Patty, please.
We are now.
Okay, I am Gary Pernig, and I'm calling to order the Public Works Board meeting for the city of Hudson, November 14th to 2024. I can say that all active members of this board are present. Can I have a motion to come to order, whatever you say?
I raise a motion to.
Raise a motion.
I second.
Okay.
Is that how that works?
That's how, that sounds like it works.
I love this team. Yeah, this is a fun little group.
Anyway, there's not, past business. I don't know if there's any past, but I want to take care of a couple of things first, and then we'll get back to doing the status and all of that. First, let's get a report from Justin on as of the ADA coordinator in general.
Things are moving along nicely. We had a meeting today with Creighton Manning and Louise to see where we're at. Work accomplished since 10/17. Drainage structures and pipe on Front Street, starting at the north end, working south, has been completed. Sidewalks and driveways for the apartment complexes were poured on Front Street in alternating sections from north to south. Over the next 2 weeks, there are plans to install more curbs on Front Street. They are going to be blacktopping. I asked about this at the corner of First and Warren. They will be blacktopping, bringing things up to grade with binder, I think that's what they called it, and they will be doing milling work to get that all ready for winter. I did ask about the cross street staircase, as you did bring to my attention that the railing was removed, which was part of the plan. But there is a temporary railing that's going to be installed next week. And there will be an ultimate replacement final permanent railing installed within a month or so.
So I haven't been down that way. Is the stairs usable? Are people using it now?
The stairs are complete.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
They are so much better.
Oh, you ran them?
Yep, twice, down and up.
Running it.
Ran them. They're really, it's really spectacular. I'm so happy about it.
Are they good for walking too?
They're incredible. The grade that they're at is such an improvement.
The grade, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and the depth of each step,
Stairs make-
right, makes a lot more sense than it did previously, where you're kind of like. Yeah, the lines were heights. Yeah, it's the right, it's a.
Good, great.
Exciting, yeah.
So that's the work under the DRI. And Ryan from Crawford and Associates is here with us to talk about other things, but we have completed Third and Cherry in front of the youth department. I say TJR, excuse me. Excavation company did that work, and that is now complete. Let's see, Ryan from Crawford and Associates and I walked Warren Street this morning to look at any of the curb ramps that were completed by Precision Safe Sidewalks, to see if there was anything that we could do better at those finished locations. As you remember, you guys might not know, from, I don't know if it was our last meeting, my last update, or maybe the one before, the DOJ, just based off of the photos that I submitted at the finished, corners on Warren Street, they still had a little bit to say, but they were quite foggy about, what specifically needed more attention other than what work was completed by Precision Safe Sidewalks. One of the things that they did say was the lips. There were like some lips at the corner of the curb ramps where they wanted it to be completely flush. So Ryan and I went out this morning, identified possible corners that they could be referring to. The mayor has reached out to the DOJ for more clarity on what specifically they need to be.
Bottom, I'm sorry, the bottom of the ramp?
Yeah, well, Ryan could probably explain it more technically.
Drainage, I mean, to get that water around that ramp.
We've had this conversation a number of times with the Department of Justice, and drainage did come up, but the way that they're interpreting this, or the way they're requiring the city to meet this code is that, so the curb ramps come down and there's generally a curved section in the front. And then they want that to be flush with your asphalt that is gonna be paved up against it. Generally, there's an acceptable standard of a lip of like a 1/4 inch or something like that. When we had a conversation with the Department of Justice, I think we had it down to 1/8 of an inch. And they said, no, it needs to be completely flush. And after Justin and I looked at the work that Precision did, they got a lot of those as far as they, with their equipment, could take it. I'm not sure how in-depth you guys were given their summary of work, but they can only do so much based on the thicknesses of the concrete. So some of those, they would have to mill more often than they probably could. But there were still a few sections where, Justin and I were out there, you take a notebook and you set it on both sides, there's sometimes a gap there. So, it's there is some work, and the reason that we looked at it as soon as we did was the DPW is in the process of doing other asphalt work in the city, and that work would have to be done in the next week or so, otherwise blacktop plants would close for the year, so it would fall into another, next year's round of work, so that was kind of the thought behind it, so.
And I submitted the list to Rob Perry, who looked over the list and said, no problem. He's gonna have his guys go out there and mill and asphalt the corners that we identified that needed to be more flush. So he's gonna do that around the entirety of the corners to make everything flush. So hopefully that will appease the DOJ if and when they return to say hello.
Thanks for doing that, you guys. Yeah. That's the real attention to detail that it seems like we need with the DOJ.
Yeah.
So appreciate it.
The, Perry can do what Precision Cutting can do?
Say that again?
Can Rob Perry, DPW, do what, Precision Cutting?
Precision has a very specific thing that they do.
I've seen
Yeah.
it, yeah, but he can mill it as well, a little bit.
He's not, I don't wanna speak exactly for him, but what Rob is talking about doing is they're gonna mill the asphalt.
Yeah.
What Precision does is they cut the concrete.
Right.
So it's a different, the milling head that I'm assuming the DPW uses on the head of the skid steer or a piece of equipment like that is not what you typically use to do what Precision did. But Rob has, most municipalities have a small milling head on the front of the skid steer that they'll be able to remove, an amount of blacktop so they can replace it and
Okay.
not have it,
So you're compensating whatever imperfections with the blacktop.
Yep,
Um,
Can I just interrupt really quick here? You mentioned the First and Warren corners. That finishing work is still with the group that did the sidewalk.
That's gotta be done by them, yes.
What's their?
Louise is
Yeah.
doing that. So that is on their radar. That is going to be happening next week.
Next week?
Yeah.
it seemed like every place I looked, you had that band.
Yep.
you know, not only in the asphalt, but also in the concrete, as on the, I saw it on Third Street as well, you know, and I guess they come back afterwards.
Yeah, it's my understanding that they do the asphalt work as one big lump
Oh,
thing at the very end, and they tackle all the different locations where they've done work prior.
Okay.
So that is to happen next week, I'm told.
I don't think we should get too crazy with trying to fix something that we think the DOJ is talking about.
Right,
I'd rather just them come back and point that out,
Point it out.
right.
you know, and.
In this case, we're not jumping through hoops because Rob is already doing the asphalt
Yeah.
stuff, so this
Has to be done.
just all happened
Good.
fortuitously. So we're gonna take advantage of it. Yeah,
Okay, and Cherry and Third is finished as well.
Third and Cherry is complete, and then we move. Well,
The
as
next
long
one.
as we all as a board approve the next work, they'll be moving to that location next week after you present it to the council.
Terrific. So and that is in fact the next point.
One more thing I wanna follow up on, the work on Front Street, is there any seasonality concerns, like, can they proceed? Now, I know you said they laid all of the sewer work. Does concrete and, cause you were saying blacktop or
Asphalt.
asphalt
and
has the season, but concrete, we can,
They're
They're gonna
gonna blankets
proceed.
on it.
yeah,
Asphalt, the plant's closed, so.
Right.
They can't really get it.
okay.
I think Ed, you answered that because I didn't know how to answer
Okay.
that.
Alright.
So Ryan, can they continue pouring concrete?
In the winter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is generally more expensive. There's, depending on temperatures, you may have to heat it or tent it and provide heat sources of some sort, but you can pour concrete all winter long.
Okay.
Just gets more expensive
Right.
in the winter.
But I think I know, because I'm down there all the time, that they really are pouring concrete.
They're doing,
Yeah.
I mean, we were afraid for a while because it was construction zone central, but
It's
the
coming together.
progress is just boom,
Coming
boom, boom,
together.
boom, boom, yeah,
Yeah,
it looks,
very nice.
it looks great.
Since you're here, Ryan, could you give us a summary of, the recommendation we have for moving forward with Seventh and Union? We need to approve this as a board so that I can then put it into a resolution and present it to the common council. That will be done next week. Is that going to give us enough time with the blacktop issue?
Like, my understanding is the blacktop plants generally don't close until Thanksgiving-ish. And I've already talked with
I know, okay,
the contractor, I talked to him again today, so one of the pieces that had a slight slowdown for Third and Cherry was, dig safe. The whole general point of dig safe is call before you dig,
Right.
and there's a window that's usually within a couple of days, it's 2 days usually. And I've talked with Rob Perry a few times, generally within the city limits, there's a little bit extended time to that, so the contractor actually called in their dig ticket for the Union and Seventh already. It doesn't cost them anything. In the event that the city doesn't proceed with it, it doesn't change anything. If they can cancel the ticket at any time. It's just, in the event that the city does want to proceed, they wanted to have everything ready.
so they're proactive.
Yeah.
And we are gonna proceed.
Yeah.
Good. So you got 3 responses back.
We have 2 responses for Union and Seventh. We sent it to, I want to say the number was 6 contractors.
Right.
I think 2 or 3 of them said they didn't have time this year. 1 or 2 didn't respond at all. And then we had a response from Frank Vosberg and Sons, as well as Louisi also provided a response. I don't have Louisi's number in front of me. I believe Frank Vosberg was around 25,500 or 250.
That's right.
Something like that.
25.5.
Yep, so that was the price for the work on Union, which would consist of, there's a small section of sidewalk that is no longer existing in front of the police station. Then there's a section that is there, so it's to connect that section to, I believe it was the DPW, Justin, that installed the crosswalk across Union, was that the DPW that did that, or was somebody else?
I'm not sure.
There is a new crosswalk at that intersection of Union and Seventh, so they're gonna put a curb ramp to that crosswalk on the south side, and then on the north side, they'll be replacing that over there to be an ADA compliant curb ramp. There currently is not a warning strip and the concrete there is broken apart and things. So that's the general scope of work for that piece there.
So they would go all the way sort of from the entrance to the police station to the tracks.
Only the section there's like a 30-foot section that's not there.
It's all gravel.
Yeah, they're gonna put sidewalk, they're gonna connect to what's existing,
Okay.
go to that, where that crosswalk is,
Yep.
and then, that'll be their section on the south side. On the north side, they'll be replacing everything there to create a, similar to what was done on Third and Cherry, the new, landings there for.
Nice.
So the four corners of the intersection plus the sidewalk is part of this project.
Only half the intersection,
Yeah.
only the east side. Nothing on the west side was identified by the DOJ. And I believe that's just the police department, I think is
Yeah.
the point they're trying to get to, so.
Right.
Any other questions regarding, this, proposal?
So hold on, so it was two bids that came in.
Yeah,
They were
the-
both right.
The other bid
No,
was
the
more
other
than
was
double,
right.
was more than 50, was more than double, Vosburg, right? And I'm looking for that figure.
Wow.
And that was from Louisiana, if I remember,
Yeah, it was, yeah, I wasn't prepared.
It's basically, we'll do it if you need to, but we gotta charge you a lot.
This is Louise,
Yeah.
and Louise are the folks who did first and
Louise is doing her DRI, yeah.
Yeah. They're doing all
doing
the
all of the DRI work.
subcontract.
And, well, with subcontract.
Right.
Yeah, it was close to $60,000 that they were quoting, and, Vosburg came in, I think it was 25.6,
25.
25.5, it was a no-brainer, just looking at the dollar amounts,
Yeah.
so.
First possible case, I think.
I think Rhinebeck, Red Hook, Rhinebeck area. Northern Dutchess County.
Gary, there's no thresholds around, we didn't get enough bids,
No,
right?
because
We're under
these
the
are,
number.
that's right. Yeah, this is not a full RFP
Got it.
process.
Okay, great.
Well, it is an RFP process, it's not a full public bid, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, no, just to be clear, it's
Yep.
anything under $34,999 can be done through an RFP process. which-
Falls in that.
Yeah,
Okay,
anything over that would require a public bid.
perfect.
So, do I have a motion to approve, our moving forward with, what's their name again?
Frank Fosberg and Sons.
Frank, yeah.
And this comes from the main lump that we were provisioned at the beginning of this whole inception of our journey. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the Vosburg proposal.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Following up on this, as I said, I will, put this into a resolution and present it to the common council next Tuesday.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Because I'm a crazy Virgo, I had to find that number, or else I would not have been happy. I
Yeah.
found it. Peter Louisi and Brothers came in at 59,000. And Frank Bosberg came in at 25. So Louisi was 59 and Bosberg was 25,250, exactly. Now I feel better.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
The other item that we should address tonight is whether or not we're gonna move forward with Crawford and Associates as our project manager and the scope of the project. With that said, Ryan, you're familiar with the two proposals.
Sure, yep.
Can you discuss those with us?
Sure, which one would you like me to go? I guess I'll start with so the first proposal we provided was an addendum to our initial proposal. To give a little background, our initial proposal was preference to be, kind of an initial phase of understanding what the city's looking for, understanding the comments from the DOJ, combining what we knew already from the Hayes report to anything that's changed throughout the city from the time that was done to today. There's been a number of projects that have happened throughout the city. And then trying to figure out a path forward for the city and the best recommendation we could give. Through that process, I think within the first few weeks of meeting with the Public Works Board members, there was some comments from the Department of Justice about seeing progress in the near term instead of the prolonged year or two it could take. And that's what I think sparked the DPW into hiring Precision, take on a lot of work on Warren Street, because that was something that could happen rather quickly and show some good progress. With that, we had a few discussions and we identified the Third and Cherry and the Union and Seventh intersections as some more standalone projects because they're isolated. That's the only work on that area. So we discussed this with the members of the Public Works Board that met with our office. And the thought was to try to shift some of our efforts to finding a way to show some progress on these intersections, which resulted in Crawford and Associates preparing 2 RFPs, soliciting pricing from contractors. And then today, we've done some construction oversight with the Third and Cherry, as well as some preliminary work for the Union and Seventh, which was slightly outside of our initial planning phase. Also in that initial planning phase, we had a line item in there to create a first draft or a first attempt at the taxation formula and working through that, which we've gotten to a point now where we have, I would think we have almost everything we would need to complete, an Excel sheet with every property. We have an Excel sheet started, just there's some information that has to be inserted now. It's more of a data entry point than anything else. So we prepared a proposal to the city and the amount was not to exceed $20,000. And that would be to continue with what we've been doing on the Third and Cherry, Union and Seventh work to keep the projects moving on the CA, on the construction administration side, and then as well as preparing the final documents that we originally proposed in our initial proposal for the planning phase, which ended with a letter or a summary of recommendations moving forward, as well as that initial taxation formula. Our second proposal is generally what we would recommend for the next steps, which I'll get into next. Next steps for what CNA and the members of the Public Works Board that we've talked to have resulted in a larger project to tackle the final locations that the Department of Justice listed in their original report. And that has to do with 5th, 6th, and 7th Street. Off the top of my head, I don't have the exact numbers. I believe 5th Street has 5 or 6 intersections that need work. I think 6th is 4, and then 7th is 2. After talking with Rob Perry, we had some discussions about the work that's gonna go on Columbia Street, and to avoid doing any work on Columbia Street, just because they're gonna be doing a lot of work out there in the next few years, the next year or so. So more than likely, any improvements that were made may be impacted, so, trying not to waste money that way. So our second proposal would be to design, prepare bid documents and design documents for the work on 5th, 6th, and 7th. That work, the way we would, present this to the city would be as a bid package with a base bid for the work on, say, 5th Street. And then we would have 6th and 7th Street, the individual intersections there as line items as add alternates. So at the end of the day, when we get a price back from the contractor, so this would be a public bid, and you get a base price of the work, and then you could get additional prices for each of the items. The city could then look at, the funds they have available and see which of the projects they could afford beyond the base bid. The other thing it does give you is it gives you the understanding of if the numbers come in high for those alternates, you at least have a starting point to think about budgeting for the future. And by doing all the design work for the bid documents all together, it'll be a little bit, it'll be a savings to the city than doing them individually. And then if for some reason some of the pieces aren't able to be awarded due to costs, you already have the design work done. We may have to do a little bit of work to change some dates and put another bid package together, but that'll be a savings in the long run. And for that, we try to use what we expected the cost to be for that to not exceed $40,000. So we wanted to keep everything separate for the work we've already started, and kind of got into with the RFPs at one price, and then move everything else that we would do for the 5th, 6th, and 7th, and track that completely separate to give the city the most clarity on, what it costs to do this and what it costs to do that as well. I know Justin and I have had a few conversations about some of the other things that we've been working on in the city. We went through the comments from the Department of Justice today, and we've been working on some other pieces as well that that would fit under that original proposal more or less. But there's some of those other pieces that I'm not sure we have clarity on exactly where CNA falls on some of those things, but we're happy to accommodate however we can do this.
Is the Columbia Street work, the CSO stuff that's
Yes.
gonna happen?
Yes.
Okay. So good move on Rob's behalf there. And then we got that big chunk of money. You know offhand, you were saying maybe 4 or 5 intersections for Fifth.
Mhm.
Say that would be generally true for 6 and 7. So 25.
So he had given a number, there was 4 for one.
I don't recall that number if I was deducting Columbia or not, but yeah, it was,
Ballpark.
most was on, I think there were 4 or 5 on Fifth,
Okay,
maybe 3 or 4 on Sixth, and it's only 2 on Seventh.
okay,
Seventh was the lowest, and there is a lot of construction work going on Seventh, so.
Yeah.
You know, that may be another reason to think about waiting on that, but again, if the prices came in the budget the city could afford, you would get the best price to do as much work at one time.
yeah,
Just because the mobilization costs are less, you know, you're buying more materials, and the schedule of values there helps out.
and that sort of structure of the base bid with the à la carte kind of.
Yep.
Works in our favor.
Yeah, we use that in a lot of municipalities,
Yeah.
and they've seen a lot of benefit out of it,
Nice.
so.
Okay. And so the initial 20K covered basically everything up until this point?
No,
No.
Correct, yeah, we went over that based on the extras that we've been doing with the RFP documents and keeping up with that. That's why we wanted to put that second addendum for that $20,000 to cover the RFPs, as well as some of the other miscellaneous pieces that we've been working with the city on as well.
Okay.
Justin, what are your thoughts?
I think we've established a really strong relationship with Crawford. We have each other's cell phone numbers. We talk pretty much weekly, every other week. He's got a really great understanding. Crawford has a great understanding of what the DOJ expects of us. They've been wonderful, and I think it would be bizarre for us to not go forward with Crawford Associates.
So I'm interpreting that to mean that we should go forward with both finishing up the existing work.
And
That's
using
on the
them as a
plate, and
project
then
manager.
adding, which is Union and Seven, but then also, preparing, using Crawford and Associates to, put out a public bid for the 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Yes. That's my opinion.
That's mine too. Thoughts?
I'm all in.
Yeah.
One question, how far have we exceeded the original contract?
Off the top of my head, I don't have
Is it a
to.
crazy number or?
No, the number of the additional 20 is what we would expect to be under for this work anyways, I think generally when we do an RFP, there's, you know, $5,000 to $7,000 worth of work, so we did 2 of those. So it might be that 10 to 15,000 range, but the only piece of that is the taxation formula. We haven't completely finished that yet, so there's probably another day or two's worth of work there. But I know there were some talks about some, you know, some other entities involving in that, so, but I'm confident that knowing the efforts that went into Third and Cherry, I wouldn't expect any to exceed the efforts there for the Union and Seven, so I'm very confident that we would come under that.
Now, let's go off on a tangent for a minute, because you brought up actually my biggest concern right now with this project. And that is getting the taxation or the assessment information, to the appropriate parties. In a format that they can work with and then, you know, go from there. It also gives us a better sense of what our revenue stream will be, moving forward.
Mhm.
And, you know, we could see some gaps from what we're anticipating in terms of revenue and actual. So Dave, you've been doing work on this.
Mhm.
And, so what are your thoughts and where do you stand with this?
In terms of like the work product that Crawford's doing on the Excel?
Yeah, you
I've not
working,
seen it.
I know, you have been working though on a model on your own. using,
Trying to figure out how we can use a map, a geospatial approach to seeing the full scope of the properties, and then creating a database that we can enter in all of the information we need to be storing for each parcel. I don't have anything to demo. I haven't had any time to build anything. I think it's a bigger project than just getting the numbers. We need to figure out how we're going to handle appeasements. We need to figure out how we're gonna handle all those kind of, I think, activities that create data, right? So I share your concern about getting the formula right, but I also think this is a much bigger project than just what's the number for each parcel, you know what I mean?
I do, we need a process, we
We
need
need all of
everything.
those
What's
pieces, so, yeah,
the
so I,
appeal process, there's a bigger picture, but, you know, so I know you've been busy. So can we set up something that you can look at what they're doing? Can you meet with Crawford?
yeah, I would love to. In fact, Ryan and I were going to meet, and I completely dropped the ball on that, I apologize for that. When we were first talking about getting the data, just getting a sense of like, where are our gaps? And where we need to fill those gaps in order to really have a real process here, a real public board process. So, yes, I'd be happy to meet. Look at the taxation formula, get a sense of how you guys have been thinking about it. Yeah, I think we need to. I mean, I think there's a lot of pieces in that we need to start talking about.
Okay, so we're hitting into December. How do we go about doing that? I'm not quite sure, except rolling up our sleeves and just starting to talk and what needs to be done. I need to be reaching out to the other departments in the city. We'll be taking this information and so forth, and where is this going to be residing?
Yeah.
And so forth.
I can say from my own perspective that I was hoping that we would hit the ground running in 2025 with something in place. And maybe that's wishful thinking, but some sort of system in place where we can start, tracking things. I don't know all of what it takes to make that happen. I would imagine that's a lot. But that's where I think you guys should meet, like, really sooner than later, before the holidays, hopefully, so you can compare notes and see how easy it is just to get something out there, so we can say that we have begun that portion of the sidewalk improvement district, in January of 2025.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to get a sense of what are our deadlines. If we had a project plan around this, I think it would give us a better sense of what our deliverables are and what our drop deads are for that. When does the county need the final information? When does the treasurer need the final information? What is our deadline for our process? What is our communication plan for the public? All those pieces, I think we need to put some real dates around. So then we can kind of piecemeal this out, I guess.
Ryan, have you done this before with other?
This exact task, no, but other processes, not, the formula is unique, I think, to the city of Hudson. But we
Sure.
worked on other things similar to this, but
Mhm.
not exactly.
Okay, so you're right. The first key is, and I've been looking to obtain that, and I haven't yet, which is, what are the dates that we have to provide this information? And everything flows backwards from that.
Yeah.
Because, we need to your point, resident communications, this is how we're moving forward. This is, and then we're gonna, we talked about this, I think, last month, last meeting. how do we allow for appeals? So do we first do we send out a separate notice from the tax notice that's saying this is what we're estimating your house to be, the assessment to be? And at that point, they can come back and say, wait a minute, I'm a firefighter and, and so things in front of it. Somehow we obtain proof of it and we check them off.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to envision it like the Board of Assessment Review. But I think it's gonna look something similar to that. Because you not only have to say, no, I'm qualified for exemption for these factors, but then you have to substantiate it. Right? We need documentation if you replaced your sidewalk, or if you're a veteran, you need to demonstrate that. So we need to create an intake process that's efficient for us as a board, but also efficient for the public to.
Well, is it our responsibility to actually do that, or is that a step that to me is a city activity?
Well, who in the city?
I don't know.
I mean, I think it's gonna get kicked back to us.
Do you?
I do.
Do we reviewing every?
We're the board that is legally tasked with implementing the law. I don't know if we can assign that out to someone else because we are appointed members by the mayor. You know what I mean? I think I could be wrong. I'm.
If that's where it comes down.
I don't love the idea of sitting here for 12 hours a day for 4 days and reviewing.
Or,
as the bar does every,
It's not gonna be the same, because essentially, if you're a veteran, you come in with your 214 or whatever it is, and
Yes.
there's,
You're right.
firefighter, it must be something. Someone can come in and say, wait a minute, I don't have 120 feet, budding.
but how many of those cases are we gonna have? I mean, we're gonna have more situations, I think.
It's very small, but
Right.
it's an exception.
Right.
Okay. And the other thing I'm concerned about, and I think, George, you were going to look into this, what are the exceptions from a standpoint of not status, but what are we gonna do with the herringbone brickwork? What are we gonna do with the heated, and I don't think that's gonna be an issue, but there are heated sidewalks out there. Or those situations where they have those graded drains running, in the concrete sidewalk. So, those sorts of things, we need to at least identify what's going to jump out at us,
Yep.
Right,
right?
I'm thinking that too, and then maybe perhaps saving that for its own, somebody come in.
I think that was Michelle.
Oh, okay, okay, nervous there for a minute. Yeah, so we could identify the properties or the areas that might be problems, that might end up being exempt for whatever reason, and holding off on doing anything regarding that, and then just tackling, and are we gonna tackle certain areas of the city in one lump chunk and focus on them and telling them, what they need to pay, or else, you know what I mean? Are we just doing it little by little, or are we doing the whole city, or
I think we have to do the whole city.
all at
Because
once, all at one time?
providing the information, getting the exemptions so that they can include that in the assessments, right? It has to go out.
And we
Yeah,
don't,
but I think you make a good point. We need to go through the process of evaluating where we want to target,
right,
right? And then that needs to be a thoughtful procedural task where we say, what are the high traffic areas? What are the areas that are most critical?
right,
I remember even we were talking about the cuts for, what did you call them? You were able to identify them correctly. The cuts they make that cars use.
No, curb cuts.
Curb cuts, but the space between that's more heavily taxed because of the weight of the car or whatever.
No.
I can't remember. We kind of went down a rabbit hole, but I've just been thinking about all those factors are, again, I think something we need to be able to collect in a database and have at reference, whether it's, the the Google Street View of the location or photographs we've gone out in our own surveys or all the good work that you've already been doing around the work that's been done. Being able to store that and have it easily accessible at a parcel level is key.
Well, I know phone calls are gonna increase to the mayor's office. I mean, I get weekly calls as it is, you know, people wanting to do their own sidewalks and, well, what does that mean? What should they do? And I'm telling people to hold on to all their receipts.
Right.
You know, that we're still in the planning phase. We're developing systems and just hold on to all of your receipts, which will inevitably make them exempt for a period of time, you know, because they did their own work.
Well, not exempt.
Well, they don't have to,
No one's gonna come close to recouping.
but I
What
think
they're doing.
didn't we agree, like, if they did their own sidewalks, they wouldn't have to pay that extra amount for a period of 10 years? Did we say that, or,
No, what it is that if you've done work in the last 10 years, you can deduct, I have to go back 10%. For a period of 10 years, which sounds like it would cover the total. Somehow I don't think you're not going to, here's what it is, not the 10. So let's say you spend $30,000 on a sidewalk, not unreasonable. What you'd be able to do is, and your assessment will come in at, let's say, $200 a year. Well, you can deduct that, I think it's 10% of that, you know, for X number of years. So it might not eliminate it or it'll reduce it. I have to go back to the thing. It's been a while since I've looked at it. But the, you know, the break, because the annual assessment is, you're not gonna have enough years to cover the $30,000 because it's a 10-year project.
I think people are definitely gonna be saving money by going the city of Hudson doing their sidewalks, or, you know, assessing them the fee.
Absolutely.
But it just comes down to, they don't wanna wait till we get around
Or they
to
can't.
fix. Or they
Or
can't.
they can't, right.
Yeah.
Right.
The First Presbyterian Church, I've had a conversation with them. Their insurance company wants them to fix the sidewalk. What is that? That's on, 4th Street. And they want it done by July. And they're asking me, you know, can you get that done? And it's not in our priority list, you know, we can't just jump ahead. But, he's only gonna get it, they will only get a pittance of what they put out in terms of the, not exemptions, but, considerations.
Do we have a standard that, say I'm Joe Average homeowner in Hudson and I want to do my sidewalk? Do we have a standard that we can give to that homeowner and they can give to a contractor a section or a drawing of?
The code, so if you're gonna do your own sidewalk, you have to come here to City Hall and get a permit from DPW upstairs.
So Rob, does he issue a detail?
They're given, people are handed our code, and in our code, there's a set specifications list of what a contractor has to follow in doing any construction with the sidewalks in the city. So what I'm told is when they come and they get their permit, they're also given a copy of our code that is very detail oriented, that makes sense to a contractor, and they have to follow that to a T. Now, do we then send people out to make sure that they follow the code? No. But,
So we don't do an inspection after, but you.
There's no-
I find that's pretty hard to screw up.
right, you're gonna get a phone call if they did something wrong. So there's enough people that are gonna call, like they do, to complain. But we don't actually send out anybody to look at that.
I use the Hudson Hub app to.
Good. Nice
Craig is
plug,
really good at.
nice plug.
at,
That is, a
at
lot of
working
people
those
don't use that.
tickets.
Yeah, well,
It's a
And-
good point though, and I think the complaints usually come in where the sidewalk meets the neighbor. Because they'll adhere to the code, but there's no standard for how high or low a given parcel's. You know what I mean?
Sends out a series of little angled bevels that, oh, the neighbor doesn't wanna put his sidewalk in, but I'm 6 inches, you're supposed to be 6 inches above the street.
Yep.
80% cross bridge. And so you have these series of little bevels that, are all over the town, and but that's neither here nor there. I'm just trying to figure out how we can streamline this, instead of making it so hard for I should just go by and see Rob and get a copy of that permit, so that I'm familiar with what the.
You don't even have to see Rob. You can come here and talk to Samantha Oliver.
Oh, so I'll go.
Yes, she's the DBW clerk, and she's basically the in real life version of Rob. Very attainable, the very present version of Rob, who's always here at City Hall, and she's great. She's
No,
on the ball with everything. Yeah.
It's a really good point, because I think it's another thing we need to produce, which is a sort of playbook for just like the question, like, how much off do I get? For how long? Right? Like all the sort of basic, I wanna do it myself and hire my own guy. What do I need? Or I want a X, Y, or Z. How long do I have to?
I mean, because at the end of the day, to your point, you're not gonna recover that money by having an exemption on, it's compared to what it's actually gonna cost. But, it's like rubbing salt in the wound if you don't get something, because but those sidewalks have to be new ones that you're gonna put in for whatever reason. I'm gonna be required to do it because of a property purchase from the city, but, I'm just wondering, I need to know, like, okay, what standards are we keeping here, okay.
Well, and I think that raises the specter of why our process for what gets done first needs to be so transparent and well thought out, because if someone's paying in for 5 years and they never get their sidewalk replaced, that's a frustrating phenomenon that we're gonna see.
Well, and I'm hoping too that if we can, eventually the contracting community is gonna get the news that, oh, hey, Hudson's doing a lot of concrete work, let's get up there and maybe our prices will start to come down, and I don't know. That's my.
Well, they'll be competing with each other, right?
They'll be competing, that's
yeah.
right, like, oh, Frank's doing it for, $10 a square foot, and I'll do it for 10.
Yeah.
8.
Brian, I'm sorry,
Yeah, no, I digressed.
on the taxation issue. You've mentioned it in the proposals. How would that be addressed moving forward? Let's say if we turn to you and say, okay, listen, we need this ramped up, we need you to move forward with it, et cetera.
So what we've done so far at CNA, is we were given most of this information already. We contacted Real Property. We have every tax parcel in the city. And through a couple of the different forms that the city has, we've identified everyone that's already exempt. Most of those are city property, county, cities, city, state, I think the school district as well. We've identified all the exempt properties, so we don't have to waste any efforts on those.
So you've done most of what we just talked about.
Some of them, have already been exempted. You could put your own exemptions in for other reasons. And then what we've started to do was we looked at the way you calculate each property. There's a few different criteria. So we have separate columns for each one of the criteria. An example is the linear feet of sidewalk in front of your property is one of those criteria. So we started to look at counting real properties to see if they had that information publicly available in a form that we could just copy and paste, and they don't, but that's part of the point now we're at. Same thing as there's a part of the code or part of the formula is the square footage of a building on the property. So the way we've come to a pretty simple way of doing it is you identify the property, you look at the property card for real properties, it tells you the square footage of a building, you input that, and the formula calculates the price per square foot. So the linear feet of sidewalk is the part that we were looking at and trying to find the most efficient way of doing that. We have copies of the city properties in a CAD file, and in that there are measurements for linear feet. They give you your property and it gives you your length, your width. So on any city street, we'd be able to see, okay, you have 25 feet of frontage on this road, 20 feet of frontage on this road, there's only sidewalk on this road, so that's your number. And we would input that into our Excel sheet, and that calculates all the different pieces. From my understanding is the formula for linear feet is based on a minimum, and then it's in increments of, I think it's 30 feet if I remember correctly, so 0 to 30 is this price, 30 to 60 or 59 is this price, and so on and so forth. So we have formulas to do all that as well. So on our end, it's really just a data entry. It's knowing what data to enter, but it's more of a point now where if you would like for CNA to proceed with that, we could pull together the full city minus the exempt properties that we know of currently, and I don't know of any holes that we haven't been able to find, like a property card for. Sometimes, excuse me, if a property is recently subdivided or sold or changed hands or gets merged, they may not have the exact information for it, but we haven't come to one that we've test run this a couple of times to see the efficiencies. We haven't come to one yet that we couldn't identify, so, and with that, we would be using the publicly available data. So I know the comment was, if someone wants to question it, you know, it's going to whatever your tax base currently is. So if your house is 1,000 square feet, that's the number we're using. It's right from the county. So if you have some other form that says your home is 900 square feet, then you bring that would be their justification for public. And that's where we are currently. And we were looking to try to find a more efficient manner for real properties. The thought was maybe frontage would be a point we could use, but they don't actually calculate frontage for every property. So that was an older technique for commercial properties, not so much residential. So, there wasn't a great solution to that. So like I said, we have a path. If the city would like to proceed in that way, we can continue.
Brilliant.
So,
So really it's really just pulling the figures from the counties, whatever you're looking at, their website,
yeah, the tax rules or, the tax maps and stuff.
and then entering it at the royal level for your Excel work.
And Crawford would do all that data entry,
We can, that's something we can absolutely do.
or we could use what you've created and then somehow we tap into that and enter it ourselves. But why would we do that? To save money?
Is that included in the 40 that you're proposing?
That was in the additional 20.
The additional 20?
Yeah.
This seems like a
Okay,
no-brainer.
can we get a motion to, recommend, our moving forward with both the finishing up the work 20 and then the, putting out to public bid, for, 5th, 6th and 7th Street? Motion?
Wait,
Second,
so what are you moving right now, Gary? You're moving to approve spending the additional 20 and then the 40 for the bid.
moving forward, which isn't gonna happen until next year.
Uh-huh.
Given the fact that we have to go out to the public, there's no more asphalt.
The construction wouldn't, however, generally.
But you're gonna be moving now,
Yes,
which,
yes.
yeah, allows us to,
Generally, you'll get the best product or best pricing and competitive pricing from contractors if you bid through the winter, because that would be a first of the
Sure.
construction
Sure.
season, so that's our recommendation generally.
okay, we ready to vote?
So what are we voting on? We're voting on the $60,000 check?
Both, yes,
That's right.
That's the number.
40 and 20, that's
60K.
correct.
Okay. And that covers us out through what you've quoted, Ryan, for how long?
So the only thing that we didn't include in that 40,000
Yep.
would be, once the city makes a decision on what projects they want to award for that larger bid project,
Yep.
let's say the city picked every one. Then that 40 may come in a little under on what we would do for like the construction administration.
Got it.
If it was just the base bid, we may be fine on that contract.
Okay.
But without knowing the exact final scope and how much oversight is needed, we didn't wanna put a number to that and shoot a number really high and then never meet it. We don't wanna put out the expectations that we're gonna try to spend every dollar.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that passes. Okay, so we're gonna have to work between now and next month. We can't wait until, you know, the middle of next month to, you know, pick up where we are. I'm gonna start working on a document that starts to identify everything that we need to get done to get to where we need to be. And we'll share it. I don't have all the answers or even all of the understanding of it, so we're gonna have to work together on it. Expect it from me in the next few days and respond as best as we can. Huh? Okay,
And with that, developing a prioritization list of work, right? So we can identify all the things that we need to do going forward.
Yeah.
But I think prioritizing the work is really
Yeah.
of top priority,
Yeah.
you know, and ranking them in order going forward.
I think we're good in terms of how we're moving forward with Crawford as a project manager, what needs to be physically done, and, you know, the work that needs to be done before you get those, bids out. The real work needs to be done with us and with your help in terms of preparing that, taxation information.
Certainly.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else?
Would you be willing to share that Excel workbook?
Sure.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd love to see those, yeah.
yes, I just gotta make sure I can send out, I'm not sure how large the file is, so,
Okay.
I
Or
have some,
a sampling of it.
Drop off.
I have them at my, I was there, we have them at the office, if someone wants to grab one, or.
Are you at the office on Fridays?
I'm at the office pretty much every day.
Yeah.
If you're talking tomorrow, I have a meeting at 2:00 out of the office, but if there's, I can leave something for our office
Okay.
manager.
Really? Yeah, Friday afternoons, I usually slip back into town, so I can run by. That'd be awesome.
I'll see if I can send it first in an email. If I can, then I'll do it that way, but I forget how large the Excel file got, so I'm not. And then maybe, there's multiple pieces. There's the Excel file as well as the tax, parcel maps, so.
So you'll get that tomorrow?
Yeah.
And then get back to us next week, let us know what your thoughts are on it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? I'm sorry, I'm just looking to, you know, I'm getting, no, I'm not cracking, I'm just looking to
Antsy.
get,
Nancy,
accounts, you know, that, what are we doing here, you know, because
That's right.
we all like to talk about, you know. Okay, anything else?
just, this is the beauty of dealing with Crawford and Associates. They're right here, a block away, a couple blocks away, can we just go right into their office, easily accessible, so.
Are
Great
you
work
guys
to
still in
them.
that big giant building, that big plate? That's on the way out of town?
No, we're not in the Flanders building. We're actually in the Hudson City Center.
Corner of State and Green.
Yes. One.
Okay, anything else? Next meeting, do we go back to, let's see what we have in, we're already. Excuse me. Well, the last Thursday is the day after Christmas,
So let them know.
right? I don't have the city calendar.
I can pull it up.
Let's do that.
Yep.
And, the second Thursday in December is the 12th.
Can't do that.
Can't do that?
What about the 19th?
I can do the 19th.
Let me just see, I'm gonna check and see if there's anything on that. December 19th?
You really wanna do it that night, right?
Sure. It's only an hour.
The 19th looks open on the calendar.
That work for you guys?
Yeah.
Is there any questions from the public? Is there any?
Oh, yes, sorry, Ronald, hang on, let me unmute you, Ronald.
Hi, I just wanted to make a comment to say that I appreciate the orderliness and, calm
I
atmosphere
appreciate your black.
of your meeting, and, it fulfills the purpose of enabling citizens to see government in action.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's nice to hear.
It is nice to hear.
Thank you.
That made me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It really
that's,
does. You
I know
you
people
don't-
complain a lot, so I think, if the public thinks you're doing a good job, they should say so.
Oh,
Well, Ronald, you surprised me. I was steadying myself for where is he going to go?
Oh,
So
no.
I like
don't.
it. Thank you.
All right. All right,
much
thanks.
appreciated. Thank you very much.
We tried. Okay.
Anybody else for compliments? Killer.
Yeah.
We got Linda.
Linda,
We got
Linda, talk to
Linda,
us.
We've got Carol. I'm sure somebody's got another compliment. I'm just teasing.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Good meeting.